We all know a buyer has options for backing out of a sale, but what about the seller? Let me tell you when sellers can and cannot back out of a home sale and how buyers can handle a seller who bails. So let's get started now. Hello everyone, this is Ric Miller. I'm a realtor in McDonough, Georgia. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the seller backing out of the sale of their own home. Before we get started, I wanted to encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. This keeps us motivated to bringing you more free content that helps you be the best buyer and seller of real estate that you can be. And don't forget to ring that bell so you will be notified once new content is posted. When can a seller back out of the sale of their own home? That's a good question. I found myself asking that after a buyer I was working with had a seller that got cold feet. Luckily, this scenario is fairly rare. Most home sellers are highly motivated to move the transaction along. If the seller does change their mind, it can leave buyers a little bit baffled and wondering whether a seller can actually back out of a contract. And what are the consequences if they do? When a buyer backs out of a real estate purchase, they can pay dearly for their change of heart. If they renege due to reasons not outlined in their contingencies, they will lose their earnest money deposit, which can be a significant chunk of change, totaling 1 to 2% of the purchase price of their home. When sellers don't offer up any kind of earnest money and appear to have less on the line, backing out of a home sale at the last minute can carry some ramifications for them too. Sellers may want to back out of a home sale for a variety of reasons. The following 5 instances is when a seller can back out of a home sale contract without ramifications. Number 1, the contract hasn't been signed. Before a contract is officially signed, the seller can kill a deal at any time. Number 2, the seller could add a stipulation to the sales contract that says they can back out without penalty, like a contingency that they have to find a new place where they want to live first. Number 3, one common buyer issue is the buyer failing to secure a mortgage in a certain time frame. If sellers don't want to wait around for the buyers to find financing elsewhere, they can move on. Number 4, the buyer requests repairs the seller is unwilling to do. When home buyers get a home inspection, they'll often request that sellers make repairs based on that report or issue a repair credit to cover those costs. The thing is, sellers can always refuse a move that could constructively cancel the real estate contract. In essence, the seller forces the buyer's hand, since constructive cancellation requires the buyer to either back off of the request or back out of the deal. And finally, in like denying the request for repairs, if an appraisal comes back lower than the agreed upon sales price, the seller is under no obligation to reduce the sales price to that appraised value. Here again is a move that could also constructively cancel the real estate contract if the seller forces the buyer's hand, since constructive cancellation requires the buyer to either back off and produce the funds to make up the difference or back out of the deal altogether. But aside from the reasons just stated, once a real estate transaction has been fully executed, it's not that easy for a seller to flake out. Are there serious consequences if a seller reneges on a deal right before closing? Most definitely. That's because in the laws governing the real estate transactions, there is something called a specific performance provision. This entitles a buyer to force a seller to honor their obligations under the contract. It does entail taking the seller to court and forcing the completion of the sale. The problem with this route is it takes time and money for a buyer to enforce, and most home buyers don't want to wait a few years even to get into a new home while their cash deposit sits in escrow. Most buyers would probably let it go. Yet, that does not mean a buyer has to just let a flip-flopping seller walk away scot-free. Instead, a jilted buyer can sue for damages from the seller for breach of contract. The lawsuit can include recouping monies the buyer spent on temporary housing, especially if the buyer sold an old home to buy the new home, and costs for storing furniture. Monetary damages could also include legal costs as well as the inspection that you incurred a cost for, survey and HOA application fees. If you have a story to share or know of an additional ways a seller can back out of a sale without ramifications, please share that in the comments section. If you have any other questions, also consult an attorney about this. I'm sure they would be helpful. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for watching, and please subscribe. Until next time, if you are selling, good luck with your sale, and if you are buying, happy house hunting.